Shari'a standard number 11. Now I am going to discuss the Istisna'a and the parallel Istisna'a. Broadly, I am going to discuss the scope of the standard, what the standard covers. Then I will discuss the contract types. I will see the subject matter, the guarantees required in Istisna'a, how we can change this contract, what kind of supervision is required in terms of execution, what is delivery and disposal of the subject matter, and what is parallel istisna, like parallel salam, and when this standard is issued. This is the scope of our discussion. The standard scope is limited to the transactions related to istisna, whether the institution is acting as an ultimate purchaser or is acting as a manufacturer or a builder for construction. So it covers all these industries. In terms of contract should have an offer acceptance, underlying asset should have a price consideration. Same all contractual standard feature should be in the contract. It should be clear, crystal specified, specific, mentioning every detail in detail to avoid disputes. Let's see in terms of the Shari'a compliances and in terms of standard, what is permissible, what is not permissible. It is permissible that the institution and a customer conclude an istisna contract before the institution assume title to the subject matter to be sold to the customer or the material from which the subject matter will be produced, manufactured or constructed. It is also permissible for institution to benefit from any price offers or quotation that the customer has obtained from other dealers or suppliers. It is not permitted that the institution role in the istisna be that of a financial intermediary between a buyer and a third party, especially if the buyer has become unable to meet his obligation towards the third party. And this prohibition applies whether such a role would take place before or after the commencement of the work. In terms of forms and conditions, a contract of course is binding on the contracting parties provided that certain conditions are fulfilled which is mentioned in the contract, which will include the type, kind, quality, quantity of the subject matter to be produced. It also includes the price of the subject matter must be known. Same way, since a contract of istisna is binding, the parties to the contracts are inevitably bound by all obligations and consequences flowing from this agreement. It is also not permitted for the manufacturer to stipulate in the contract that is not liable for the defects. And same way, it's not permitted to conclude istisna contract or process in a manner that makes it is a legal device for mere interest-based financing. So if you use it in the wrong way, it will void the concept of istisna and it will become invalid in terms of Shari'a compliances. In terms of guarantees, what are the rulings concerning with al-masnu? It is istisna contract is of course permitted only for raw material that can be transformed into their natural state by a manufacturing or construction process using the manpower in tow. So it is permissible that a contract of istisna be concluded for the production of a subject matter having unique description according to the requirement of ultimate purchaser, even if such a matter has no close substitutes. It is not permissible that the subject matter of an istisna contract be an existing or an identified capital asset. So it should be a new asset, it should be in the manufacturing or other process. Contract of istisna may be concluded with the condition that the production shall be carried out by the institutions using its own resources. It is also permissible for the manufacturer to fulfill his obligation in an istisna contract by using items produced by his own resources or item produced by other party that existed before the contract was concluded. In terms of manufacturer, if he is under an obligation to produce the subject matter according to the specification and within the period agreed, it should be recognized by the evaluator or by the expert. Parties may agree on a period during which the manufacturer will be liable for any defects or the maintenance of the subject matter. It is also permissible to draw up an istisna contract for real estate development on designated land owned either by the ultimate purchaser or the contractor, or on the land in which either of them they have a temporary temporary right to use. This is permissible because the contract involves the construction of the specified building that will be built and sold according to the specification of the contract. Generally, developers most of the Islamic developer who is using the Islamic financing, they are working on these Islamic product options. In terms of price and guarantees, it is part of the contract what is agreed price, and it can be in the form of cash or tangible goods. Like in conventional language we say cash and cash equivalent, here it is cash or any kind of other tangible goods can be can be decided as a price for this contract. What are the changes? What changes we can make in istisna contracts? We can amend, we can change, we can introduce new conditions with the both party consent, in which both parties feel there is no harm to do it. It is permissible, of course, for the manufacturer and the ultimate purchaser to agree on amending manufacturing terms. It should not violate the basic principle of Shari'a, of course. Ultimate purchaser cannot oblige the manufacturer to introduce modifications and changes to the subject matter without the consent of the manufacturer. So it's logical, you have already agreed terms, condition, model, pricing, manufacturing, types, styles. So if you are going to disturb this, this is going to disturb the full contract. If it is permissible for amendments and changes to the contract to be agreed on the basis that an additional sum will be paid in a consideration for an extension for the period of the payment. In terms of intervening contingencies where you are having disputed situations, it is permissible by way of an agreement of the contracting parties or arbitration or judicial procedure through court to amend the contract price of an istisna contract upwards or downwards. Like we can increase and decrease if it is by court or by arbitration or by mutual agreement. It is also permissible for institution to replace a contractor and enter into an other contract with the customer to complete the project. So the delivery of things should be on time and according to the first agreement. In case of constructing buildings or public utilities on land owned by the ultimate purchaser, it is permissible to stipulate that the recovery of these remaining balances will be done, and in addition ultimate purchaser will bear the expenses incurred in selling the subject matter. It is also permissible for the contract of istisna to include a fair penalty clause stipulating an agreed amount of money to compensate the ultimate purchaser adequately if the purchaser is late in delivering the subject matter. It would also motivate the developer to give things on the right time to avoid any kind of fair penalties for them. It is not permissible to sell the subject matter prior to taking either actual or constructive possession. So you cannot sell the concept only, it should be a physical reality. It is permissible for the institution acting in the capacity of ultimate purchaser to appoint, after taking possession of the subject matter, the manufacturer as an act to sell the subject matter to later customers on the behalf of the institutions. Let's discuss the parallel istisna. We can have other arrangements side by side. It is permissible for institution to buy items on the basis of a clear and unambiguous specification and to pay to make things very transparent between both parties. It is also permissible for institute acting in capacity of producer or supplier to conclude an istisna contract with the aim of selling such items to the customer on a deferred payment basis, or to enter in a parallel contract on an immediate payment basis. This is between both parties, how they agree. As a result of concluding a contract in the capacity of the producer or a supplier, the institution must assume liability for ownership risk and maintenance and insurance expenses prior to deliver the subject matter to the ultimate purchaser. If a contract is unable to continue to discharge his obligation, then the ultimate purchaser, who is the owner of the land, is not entitled to acquire ownership of incomplete building structures or utilities that are already placed without giving consideration to the contractor. In terms of moving forward, it is also permissible that a contract of istisnas include a clause to the effect that any additional conditions are inserted into a contract at a later date as a result of directive of the relevant authorities, and these additional conditions lead to extra expenses that should be borne by the manufacturer itself. In terms of supervision of an execution of an istisna contract, it is permissible for institutions, when acting as an ultimate purchaser, to appoint, with the consent of manufacturer, a technically experienced consulting firms to represent it in determining whether the subject matter conform with the contractual obligations. It is permissible for institution, when acting as a manufacturer, to draw up an independent and separate contract of agency, appointing the ultimate purchaser as the agent. It is also permissible for a manufacturer and ultimate purchaser to agree on the party who will bear the additional cost of supervision of this contract. In terms of delivery on time and disposal of the subject matter, manufacturer is discharged from the liability if the subject matter is delivered and handed over. If the condition of subject matter does not conform to the contractual specification at the date of delivery, the ultimate purchaser has a right to reject the subject matter or accept it in its present conditions. It is also permissible that delivery of subject matter takes place before the due date on condition that the subject matter meet the specification agreed upon. Delivery may take place through constructive possession by enabling the ultimate purchaser to take control over the subject matter after the production process is complete. So if you have made the homes, you can easily shift yourself into, and this will be completing the delivery process. If the ultimate purchaser refuses to accept the subject matter without a good reason, after he is unable to take possession, the subject matter will remain in the possession of the manufacturer on a trust basis, in which the case the manufacturer will not be liable for loss and damage to the property or such damage or loss. The ultimate purchaser bear the expenses for the safekeeping of the subject matters. Same way, it is permissible to state in a contract of istisna that the manufacturer will act as an agent of the ultimate purchaser to sell the subject matter if there is a delay on the part of the purchaser in taking delivery of the subject matter. Same way, it is not permitted to make any contractual link between the obligations of the two contracts, like the istisna contract and the parallel istisna contract. This standard was issued on 23rd of May 2001.